Okay, are you ready? I think shall we start the session now?
Yes, yes, it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Um, Good afternoon, everyone. I believe we have three regions now, but all of us have the afternoon started already. I'm Kazi. I am the co-founder and CEO of Symphotix Dubai. We are a training company operating in the UAE. And this program is organized by Terabis, which is one of the leading training and conference company in Pakistan. And on behalf of the group CEO of Terabis and Symphotix and the founder of both the companies, Mr. Hamza Wasi Hashmi, I welcome all of you on this program. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Hassam, for joining us in this session. Hassam has already taken various sessions with us on the same subjects in the GCC, but for Pakistan, it's his first one. And I can see a lot of exciting faces eager to learn a lot of things today. I won't take much time, just some pointers about the session. It's based on 1 hour. We will be taking questions in between the session. So in between, there will be no formal break for question and answers, but you can post questions on the chat window and we will read it out. At the end of the session, we will allocate like 20 minutes approximately for the final Q&A. We have turned off the mics now so that there are no glitches during the session. You can see already 225 people already joined and it's still popping up now. Hassam, you can share your
Yes,
screen now and I think let's formally begin the session.
all right. Just give me a
Thank
second.
you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar, 5 to Inspire Draft Meaningful Business Emails. And when it comes to emails, emails are the integral part of our everyday work life, right? We spend hours and hours checking, drafting, and sending emails. So with this webinar, I would like to make things, I would like to actually assist you in making your business email drafting more influential, more attractive. So let's see how it goes. All right. Before we begin, I'm just going to formally introduce myself to you. I'm Hassan Siddiqui. I'm a communication consultant for TerraBiz. I'm working with Symphotix as well. I'm a published co-author of a book that ranked second in the 2019's must-read book by the KPI Institute in their annual publication. I'm associated with learning and development industry for the past 7 years. I'm also certified business communication professional by University of California, Berkeley. Other than that, I have been working as a communication strategist for many international and national clients. One more distinction that I just didn't put it here, I am also a band 9 scorer in writing segments of IELTS. So this is what I am, and now I'll proceed forward towards the program. Now, there are four, in fact, some requests, some ideas to share with you about the program, how this program is entirely structured. Number one, I would request you to keep your mic mute during the session because there are so many people joined, mashallah, from different regions and different countries. We have around 250 people, so we cannot have other people to say a lot of time. So, in order to avoid any inconvenience, I just request you to keep the mic mute. Number two, I would request that I'm going to take your questions in the middle and at the end of the session as well. So I'll be taking 2 or 3 questions after each concept that I'll be going to deliver, and then at the end I'll be taking a lot of questions. We all know the time is short, right? So we are going to take some questions, and if you have some longer questions, some questions that require a lot of elaboration from my side, you can always reach me out through LinkedIn. You can always email me. All right. Number four, all the presentation slides, all the content of the presentation will be sent to you via email. So if there's anything that you feel like rushed or something, you will be getting the presentation. All right. Now let's just talk about what are the topics that are covered. Firstly, I'm going to discuss readers' psychology. What readers really want to know, I mean, what do they have when they see your emails, right? So we are going to talk a little about readers' psychology. Then we will be talking about some routine mistakes which we all, I mean, some of us all are guilty of making in our emails. And then I'll be telling you some of the tips through which you can actually overcome those mistakes. Then there are different kinds of email situations. We are going to discuss those situations, and then I'll be talking about different strategies which you can use to tackle those situations. Then there's something more philosophical, something related to business communication, business writing, which is called framework of writing. I'm not going to talk about any parts of the speech here, but something more philosophical, something that is the underlying elements how you can write better. So I'm going to discuss that. Then we all are, since COVID has arrived, we all are working from home time to time, and we are at home or at work, but we are required to assign tasks to our subordinates in different departments. So I'm going to tell you some of the techniques through which you can assign those tasks very effectively. At the end, if we get some time, I'm going to touch upon some fundamentals of grammar. But if we do not have the time, what I'm going to do is that I'll just give you the presentation and it has all the things written. So if I just run out of time, you'll already get all the presentation and you'll be able to cover those grammar rules which I wanted to cover. All right. Now, moving forward, before we start anything, there's one thing I would like to ask. There are three different things that are in my mind. Number one, can you tell me how many emails are sent per second on average? If anyone would like to write on chat, how many emails are there that are sent per second on average throughout the world? Anyone? Okay, so some people have said 5 million, some people have said 1 billion, some have said 100 million, some have said 2000 million. Okay, so the right answer is it's 2.7 million. Each second, on average, there's 2.7 million emails that are sent. And I have read somewhere on some authentic site that it makes around 212 billion in a whole day. So imagine the amount of emails that are being thrown at people all the time. Now, one more question. As an average employee, how many hours you think that we spend on checking emails? How many hours in a week that we spend on checking emails? What do you think? What are your guesses? Okay, Tarfa has said 10. Okay, some has said 40. Some has said 9, 40. Like, all right. So no, it's not that much, not 40. It's actually 13 hours. All right. So 13 hours in a week we spend on checking emails. All right. We have, if we say we have 8 hours of work day, and in a week we have so many hours, but out of all those hours we spend our 13 hours just to check our emails, which makes approximately 1.5 days a week. So can you imagine how much time that we spend on checking emails? And then final question from which I am going to ask to you is that of all the emails, how much percentage you think people actually misunderstand or completely don't understand at all? How much percentage you think people don't understand at all of their emails? If you would like to answer this question. Okay, so it's 50%. 50% of the emails that you send to the people, they are either completely misunderstood or partly misunderstood. So now we all know that what's the problem with the communication. We send emails and they are completely misunderstood or partly misunderstood, and that makes a lot of resource wastage and time wastage, and in most of the cases of reputation loss as well. So now I'm going to put on the screen a couple of case studies, and I'm going to discuss what can possibly go wrong when we send a faulty email. What can be a disaster? How can it turn? How that can turn into a disaster? Now on your screen there is a case study of an airline. I would like you to read and tell me what are the two mistakes in that particular case. What are the mistakes that the sender has made? Just take a minute, read this email, and then write down two mistakes which the sender has made in this particular case. I know one is very obvious mistake, but there's another issue as well. So just take a minute, identify, and then I'll tell you. Okay, so there are two different mistakes. One is very obvious, that the CEO sent an email and hit a reply all button. He happened to send the reply to the complainants as well, and it became the talk of the town that the CEO of the airline is saying actually that let the world know how bad we are. Imagine a CEO sending an email to the complainants and saying that let the world know how bad we are. And they are never going to fly with us anyway. And we don't serve them a penny. So it became a talk of the town. But this is one obvious mistake, that he hit a reply all button. But there's another mistake. The other mistake is you never put any negativity, any such negative responses on email. Even if this email wasn't a hit reply all button case, it could have been hacked. Anyone's email can be hacked, right? And this could have been become a front line of any newspaper. So number one, he made a mistake by putting a reply all button. Number two, he happened to send certain part of the emails that should not be written on emails at all, right? So these are the two mistakes. Now, moving forward, there's another case which I really, I mean, I don't actually, I would say that I enjoy, but you can just see how a small mistake can turn an entire thing upside down. Just read this too as well, and let me know a mistake in that. So just take a minute, read it down, and there's one obvious mistake. Yes, so N Fatma has written that proofreading is the issue. Yes, the entrepreneur, the socialpreneur had done everything right, but he made a silly small mistake that has costed him around $50,000. What was the mistake? He did not rightly, wrote down the name of that person, so it was wrongly written, and that actually triggered the person to just pull off from the deal. So can you see how can small mistakes turn out to be a bigger disaster when it comes to emails? Now, moving forward, let's just talk about reader psychology. When it comes to readers, there are few things which we always need to keep in our mind. Number one, that our readers are mostly time pressed. They do not want lengthy emails to read. And if you are writing any email which is any complex for them, they will stop trying to understand it, or worse, start making mistakes in interpretation that can cost you a lot of time waste, a lot of energy wastage, and a lot of resources wastage. So this is the thing. Whenever you're writing to an email to someone, try not to make it over complex, or just don't try to put a lot of details into a communication. It will make it very complex. Number four, one thing that people don't really understand is that when you send someone a shorter email, it leads to a faster reply. When you send them a long email, they take a lot of time to respond that back. So if you don't necessarily have to send a long email, just try to send a shorter one. Just try to keep yourself short in your email or in your drafts. And then they and when someone sends you an email, just keep in mind that they want the reply as soon as possible. Sometimes people take a lot of time to respond them back, right? So it is not the case. Sometimes people think that, okay, let me just, write a good long reply. But in this case, you actually lost your reputation in front of your, the person who's actually requesting some information from you. All right. So these are the things that we need to keep in mind when it comes to reader psychology. Now, moving forward, there's some routine mistakes, some mistakes that we all are, or some of us are guilty of making. Number one, we receive a lot of emails which have unclear subject lines. They have a lot of long passages written on the subject lines, which actually kill people from reading it. You know, in some statistics, it's written that 50% of the emails are judged on the basis of their subject line. So if you are not able to write a crisp subject line, you are going to kill the impression. All right. And then, as we have read in the case, wrong name of the recipient. No matter how brilliantly you have written something, if you are putting the name of the recipient wrongly, it's going to kill your impression. They will think that you are not very thorough, you are not very professional. Then a lot of people make this mistake that they capitalize the wrong word. They don't actually know that what word has to be capitalized, what doesn't have to be. Then usage of vague words, some words which are, some very some words that they do not make any sense at all. Some people get confused at what you actually want to write. Then some people try to be verbose. Those who are very good at communication, they try to put a lot of words in their emails, in their communication, just to make the other person feel that they know communication very well. But this is not the case. Nobody wants to read a lot of things. Nobody wants to see that if you are writing a lot of things, he doesn't want to show, to see anything like this. He wants to see a crisp email which directly gives them the message what you want to deliver. He doesn't want to see a fashion show of words. All right. So instead of being verbose, we should try to keep it crisp and concise. Then sometimes people copy and paste certain things from their emails to another email, and this results in uneven fonts. They forget that they have to change the fonts as well. Sometimes it's the color of the font, sometimes it's the font used. These are the kinds of mistakes that people normally make. Furthermore, some people use confusing words. Sometimes people use words that do not represent what they really want to say at all. Now, one more mistake that people who know communication makes is that they use difficult words or jargons in order to show their, control or command over the language. When we do something like this, we give the reader a message that we are very strong and we are very smart and you are not very smart, right? And sometimes the reader psychologically feels offended by you using difficult words. All right. So nobody wants to feel bad about himself. So even if you have a command on topic and if it is not required, just try to keep your communication, just try to keep your words simple, not very difficult. Then I don't have to elaborate that some people write a lot of lengthy sentences, 3 lines, 4 lines sentences, and it keeps going. You don't have to do it. Just don't try to, extend it more than 10 to 12 words. All right, that's how it should be. Then unstructured emails. Some people use emails which are loosely structured. They jump from one topic to another very fast and then come back to the same topic. So you don't have to be jumping from one topic to another in your emails. You have to be very, very structured. Then a lot of people make mistake with is forgetting to attach the files that they want to send. They totally forget the attachments at all. All right. So these are 10, 12 mistakes that all the people make. Now I'm just going to give you a few tips through which you can overcome them. So you should keep in mind that whatever you're going to keep as a subject line, it should not be more than 5 to 7 words. It should not be longer than that. All right. Then try to keep your sentences length no more than 15 to 20 words, ideally 10 to 12. But if you have to keep it very lengthy, it shouldn't be more than 15 to 20. This is how it should be. Then some people when they try to be very professional, they try to use passive sentences. They try to use passive sentences so much that it feels like that people are reading an email from a robot. So you have to keep a human touch in your email, and you have to use active voice rather than passive sentences. All right. Then, same as the length of the sentences, people use a lot of lines in the paragraph. Sometimes I read emails which has 12, 15 lines in the same paragraph. Nobody wants to read these lines in a single paragraph. It only gives an impression that you just want to write. All right. So a paragraph ideally should not exceed more than 4 to 5 lines. Then this is a situation where we make mistake in writing a right date, time, name, or salutation. So in order to overcome that situation, what we actually have to do is that whenever we are writing our email, we first red mark those date or time or whatever it is, whatever the important information is there, just red mark it. And once you're done completely writing your email, recheck those things, date, time, name, and salutations. And then after when you have made the correction, after you are completely sure that it is correct, just make it on the email color. Just remove the red mark then. All right. Now, moving forward, whenever you are writing attachment, whenever you are writing words such as attachment or there is a file attached, just highlight that color, just highlight that font with red color or something like this, so that whenever you are sending that email, you are sure that there has to be an attachment in that email and you don't forget to attach it, right? Once you have ensured that you have attached it, you can change the color back to normal. Now, there are many emails where we need to require a lot of time. We require a lot of time to draft it, and it is very important emails. So what I actually propose to people is that whenever you are drafting any important email which you cannot afford to make a mistake in, just complete the draft, take a 5 minute walk, go out of the room or do something else, and then come back with the reader's eye. Try to come up with something that with this eye that there has to be some mistake in your writing and try to improve it. This strategy works like wonders, even though sounds very basic, but when you go out and when you come back, you will be automatically be able to highlight some of the mistakes that you have in your writing. Now, any questions so far, you can just write on the in the chat box, and I'll be taking those questions. All right.
Yes, Assam. So far, we have a few questions. I will repeat. Paras has asked that in certain situations, active voice may appear to be very direct. So when you start again, please share an example that how we can avoid a very direct communication and we can change the tone of the voice.
Okay.
Then Bilal Farhat has asked about the length of a sentence. You already answered 15 to 20. And Salman is saying if we are promoting paperless banking, then emails are supposed to be lengthy. So if you can answer these two questions first. One is the active voice conversion, if it is a very direct email, and second is in a paperless banking, the email is supposed to be lengthy. So what to do in that regard? Okay. And then I will ask a few more questions.
Okay. So as far as banking issue is concerned, I'm going to tell you when it is inevitable to write a lengthy email, how can you make it more crisp? So I'm going to cover it in the later part of the presentation today. And then the other question was, changing it to a, active voice. So again, I'm moving forward to the different strategies and different situations of the email, and I'm going to tell how it can be changed and it can be altered. All right. Now let's move forward. Now there are different email situations which I mentioned earlier.
Assam, sorry to interrupt you. There is one question which I'm sure is striking to a lot of people. You mentioned that take a 5 minute walk or 4 minute walk. But people are saying that when writing emails, sending the stuff over the internet media, we cannot, it's not about the walk, we cannot take a break. So what would you suggest, can we shorten the timeline of this break, and why it is so much important to give this break?
Okay, so there are two things. I'm talking about an email which is very, very important and in which you cannot afford to have a mistake, and which is a comparatively lengthy email. All right. So you can obviously you can shorten the break from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, but it is very important for you to go out and come back with a reader's point. You have to have a fresh eyes to read that. When we are drafting an email, we sometimes have different assumptions in our mind, and we do not see it as a reader's perspective. It is always good to go somewhere else and come back and see that email with a reader's perspective. It always works. I know people are time pressed. I know people don't have a lot of time, but if you can squeeze that 5 minutes to 2 or 3 minutes, but it's always important to move to a different work. Even if you don't have to walk somewhere else, just start doing something else and then come back to that email and read it with a fresh eye. Now, let's just move forward. Let's just talk about different email situations. Number one, there are good news. We all know good news such as promotion, increments, vacation approval, project successes. And then there are neutral and routine information. For example, change in policies, routine updates, information sharing, reports and findings, etc. Some clients have asked you something, that these are routine information. Then comes a situation which is called bad news, such as job termination, rejection of vacations, project failures, etc. Now, and then lastly, we have a situation called persuasive emails, such as budget expansion request. We are sending some proposal to someone and we need to negotiate. These are 4 different kinds of email situations. And then we have different strategies to tackle these situations. Number one, we have a direct strategy. Reaching out to the crux of the email at the very beginning. Just tell that person what you really want to say. It works like a charm when it comes to sending someone a good news, and when you are sending someone a neutral information or an information which the person has asked. You don't need to go, layers by layers of words. You just have to give them the news what you really want to say. If it is good, fair enough, or if it is an information which he has asked for, just put it in the front. Why it is necessary to do that? Because when you put a good news and neutral information at the very beginning, it improves your goodwill in front of the recipient's eye, right? And for this, sometimes you can actually write a subject line which is self-explanatory. For example, if you are telling someone that he has got promotion, you can just write that you have got a promotion. Just by reading that subject line, his eyes for the email will completely change. So instead of trying to cover up all these things in a layer and layer of information, just try to put, if it is good news or a neutral information, just try to put it on the top. All right. Now, this indirect strategy, for example, if you are in a situation where you have to give up bad news, or where you want to persuade someone to do something, you always purposely try to delay the central idea of the message. Sometimes you put a good information, chunk of information why you're doing it at the top, and then you come to your point. I know by delaying the message, it may annoy your reader, but it is always a good strategy to avoid any hitback. You always have to put some information if it's a bad news, or if you want to persuade someone, just put the information and then come to your targeted purpose later. Try not to put your subject line in a way that it sounds direct when it comes to any bad news or a persuasion. All right. So we are going to see a case. We are going to discuss a case where you have to read and highlight what kind of email situation it is and what kind of strategy we have applied here. Now take a minute and read it out. This is a case regarding COVID. This is the case of a person who was being his salary reduced. So now I would just want you to read that email and tell me on the chat box what kind of email situation it is and what kind of strategy the writer has adopted. All right. Okay. So many of the people are saying that it's a bad news, right? And some people are saying that it's an indirect strategy. I would say that it's not an indirect strategy. Why? Because if you can read the first subject, I mean, read the subject line, it says reduction in salaries, right? So it directly sells the purpose on the subject line. So it's a direct strategy, and it is telling you about the reduction in the very at the very beginning. Now let me just tell you how you can make it a indirect strategy, how you can better apply that, right? So read that case now. You are trying to give that person a bad news, but in an indirect way. Now read this out. So if you are not clear, you can just ask a question. So it has a subject line which does not exactly say that the salaries are being reduced. And then in the first paragraph, the writer tries to make this I mean, start by telling a good news and then comes to a negative point, right? So this is how you can structure your email when it comes to delivering any bad news by applying any indirect strategy, right? So if you have a question, you can just ask. Khurram Javed has said that good, but didn't reduce the pain. Yes, it doesn't. Obviously, nobody wants to have their salary reduced. But again, when you are giving that person a news, when you are starting by giving some good news that obviously they are not being laid off, at least it doesn't reduce the pain, but at least it gives them a little bit of comfort, right? So this is the thing. Now let's just move forward. If nobody has a question, let me just move forward. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit of writing psychology. I'm going to talk about certain frameworks which we need to keep in our mind. There are five elements which we need to keep in our mind. Number one, we are going to talk about coherence, cohesion, tone, temperature, and complexity. All right. Now, what is coherence and cohesion? Coherence refers to the logical structure of the correspondence. It about the entire thing that you want to write, the connection of entire write up at the idea level. You just have to ensure that you do not go away from the topic which you want to talk about. Why I am going to discuss all the frameworks of writing, why I'm going to discuss all these elements with you, because it's not going to help you just in your email writing, but it's going to help you in your business communication as well. You need to understand the underlying elements of writing as well. So again, coming back to coherence is all about how you structure an entire email. What you want to deliver, are you being on the point, or are you deviating from the main topic? This is coherence. And then comes cohesion. Cohesion refers to sequential connection at the sentences level. Are you able to deliver what you want to deliver by having connection between sentences or not? Let me just put an example on the screen for you. Now, on our left, we have a bad example, and on our right, we have a better example of coherence and cohesion. Just take a minute and read it out. Okay, so on the left side, it is written, it's jumping from one topic to another without any connection, right? And then on your right, if you can see, there's at least a paragraphing, there's at least a connection. There are certain cohesive devices are used, such as however, such as to conclude. So all these things make sense. In most of the emails, people jump from one topic to another without making any plot behind it. We just have to ensure that we have a coherent and cohesive wordings. All right. Now, if you have read, just write okay and then I'll move forward. Or if you have a question, you can ask. Okay, let's just proceed forward then. Now, there's one thing called tone. Tone refers to the degree of formality of words used in the correspondence. How formal you are in your writing. I know this one thing particularly may sound very basic because we all know that business communication requires formal writing. But I'm just going to give you to those who are starting their journey in professional life. I'm just going to give them a essence of it. All right. Now there's an email. Ali, the email is being sent to Ali. It says, Ali, I got your email. Not sure why you are trying to what you are trying to say. Let me see what I can do to fix this. When we are talking about formal emails, we don't write God, we don't say not sure, something like this. We would rather try to be very formal. How you could have just rephrased it. You could have said, Dear Ali, I received your email. I think some of the points aren't very clear to understand. However, I will try to resolve this problem. Right? So there's a degree of formality there in the latter part of the email. This is how you can further improve your tone. Now, this is very interesting. This is called temperature. Temperature refers to the degree of severity of words used in your correspondence. How harsh you make the conversation, how harsh the environment you make through your email conversation. Let me just share a couple of examples with you. Now read this email. This is an email from a leader to his subordinates, and he's telling that how the company is going towards a bad, losses. All right. So just read that email. Yes, Abbas has said that in the previous example that it depends upon the nature and personal relationship with the person. Yes, definitely. But sometimes people don't realize that they are being personal in a very professional environment. So for them it is. Now let's just see this example. So the email says, Dear all, anyone who has not put their head in the sand lately knows about the big problem we are having in the marketplace. Taking aim at the weaker items in our product line, a horde of well-trained competitors is inflicting mortal wounds. As a result, we are hemorrhaging revenues. How do we staunch bleeding? Dump our weakest products and channel our energy into stronger ones. That means we must pound out a powerful marketing plan to drive home the advantages of our products. We must brainstorm ASAP to come up with a strategy that has teeth. If we fumble this one, we all may soon be standing on the unemployment line. Now, if you can see in this email, there's a lot of warm temperature. I know there's a situation which is very harsh, but even the words are inflicting some alarming sense, right? Now, how could you rephrase the same email? This can be one of the examples. The email starts with the subject line, straight decline in profits. Now it says, Dear all, by now most of us probably aware of the critical challenges that we are facing in the marketplace. Competitors are cutting into our market share and diminishing our revenues. The only solution may be to forego some of our less successful products so that we may concentrate on the more successful ones. To do this, we would have to streamline our marketing efforts to communicate value to customers. This will require planning sessions to develop an effective strategy. I recommend that we proceed with all deliberate speed to develop a viable approach. The consequence of failing to move quickly and incisively could indeed be dire. So now the same message being delivered in a very different temperature. It has all the same meanings, but now at least you are not that alarmed. If you understand if you understood the message, if you understood the example, just write okay and then I'll move forward.
Assam, there are some quick questions. Shall I repeat it now?
Yeah.
People are asking, is it compulsory to write dear before the name? And Abbas has said, is it really important to sugarcoat everything? Why not we call a spade a spade?
Okay. So very
And
interesting.
how? And one question is very challenging. Tom Hanks, I do not know the exact name, but Tom Hanks is saying how to write selling email without sounding desperate.
Okay, so let me just come to those questions one by one.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question was, is it necessary to write dear before name? I mean, this is how you start an email, a professional email. Not very necessary, but it's always a good thing to start with any salutation, with any word that make that person feel that you are writing in a polite tone. All right. So it's not, I mean, somewhere written that you have to start with dear, but it always gives that person the feeling that you are going to talk in a polite tone. All right. If someone starts an email with your name directly, you will feel a little bit alarmed. All right, so it's always good to start with some polite words. Now the next question is, why do we have to sugarcoat everything? Just call a spade. Abbas, it's a very good question, it's a very interesting thing, but you are not sugarcoating, you are calling the same thing, but what you are trying to do is that you don't have to, scare people out. You have to put things in a way that it doesn't sound alarm. And I'm not saying that you do not have to sugarcoat. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you do not have to. I am just giving you this essence that how different words can change the temperature of the message, right? It is not about sugarcoating, it is about using the different set of words to deliver the same message, and how it can change the environment, how it can change the temperature, right? Now, so the the question is, Tom Hanks has asked how to write selling emails without sounding desperate. Okay, Tom Hanks, there's no, one good answer to this, but in our case, what I have actually seen, that whenever you are sending something, what how people actually write a selling email, they try to sell their products benefits to them. They try to sell it a lot of time. Many people don't understand that when they are writing an emails, especially the selling email, they do not have to show the benefits of their products, but rather they have to write it in a way that they can make the participant or the recipient understand that there's a lot of benefit for them. You have to write with the reader's perspective, what's in it for them. They are not really interested about your product benefits, but they want to know how it can help them. So it's just a slight difference of opinions, such a just a small difference of perspective, but it works. When you send them an email and you make them realize that okay, it has a lot of benefit for them, only then they are they want to buy something.
One question is repeated. We
Mm-hmm.
skipped this question. Paras is
Mm-hmm.
asking what to write when you do not know about the gender of the person. So after dear, if you can you write directly the name, and can we skip this Mr. and Mrs. or Miss part?
Okay, so in a very formal environment, there's one more thing that is introduced, which is MX. We write MR or MS or MRS. When we are not sure about the gender of that person, we write MX. But in our part of the world where we live in Pakistan, it is not yet generally accepted. What you can do is that you can skip Mr. and you can write that person's name. Nobody will be feeling offended if you are just writing that person's name. But we now have a formal solution to it, but it just needs a little bit of acceptance, and then people will start using it. So instead of using Mr. or Miss, if you're not sure, you can also write MX. All right. Now, Mr. Kazi, can I move forward?
Yeah, there are some questions, but let's move forward. We'll take it
Okay,
in the
okay,
end.
okay, okay, sure, sure. Now, let's just talk about complexity. Complexity refers to the degree of words and sentences. You can sometimes use a lot of hard words and a lot of long sentences, which can make the entire communication, a very simple communication, very hard to understand. I'm just going to put a few examples of how you can make simple words, how you can use them, and then I'll show you a strategy how you can make your sentences way simpler. Now, there are certain complexity in words. There are certain words which we use that makes things very complex. Over usage of them actually make all the things look very complex. For example, if you are writing assistance, you can just write help. If you are writing numerous, you can just write many. If you want to write facilitate, you can just write ease. Writing remainder, just write rest. If you're talking about initial, something that is with this you begin with, you can just write first. Implement, just write do. Sufficient, enough. Attempt, try. Refer to as called. See, you don't have to be very complex when you're writing your business communication. We people just have made their senses, made their mind, and whenever they are writing a professional communication, it has to be complex. There's a very good article published in I think in HBR, the needless complexity in words. I'll share the link if I would find it. So it says the same thing. You don't have to use the words which are very hard for the person to understand. Just try to use a simple word. Why I'm saying this? Reading is like driving. When a person is reading, he is actually driving in his mind. Whenever a word that is hard for a person to understand comes in writing, it comes as a speed bumper, right? A speed breaker. So you don't have to use speed breakers. You just have to keep the flow of your of the reader very smooth. It has to be like a smooth road. So a little bit philosophy, but you have to ensure that use word. And one the advice would be that whatever you are writing, just ensure that you write what you are comfortable with speaking. If you are Whenever we are reading anything, we are actually uh, speaking that in our mind as well. So just use those words which are simpler. This will make your communication very influential, very effective. Now, moving forward, how complexity in sentences can work. Now, we have an email. Let me just put it on screen. This is a press release by some textile company. They wrote an email. All right. What was that email? That email of the press release, it was, "Dear all, we categorically confirm that XYZ has not terminated 32 of its employees. Another malicious story being spread and linked to the above is of the apparent attempted suicide of a young female worker. Why anyone would spread this outright lie is beyond understanding, but this goes to show how some vested interests will stop at nothing to premeditatedly plan to try and cause reputational harm to XYZ." Now, even if you are very good with your communication, you won't be able to make sense what that person want to say if you are reading it for the first time. How you could have made it simpler? You could have just said like this. You could have said, the company could have said, "Dear all, we reject the rumors that we have terminated our 32 employees, same as we reject another similar story of suicide attempt by one of our young female worker. While their intentions are still unknown, we believe some groups will keep on trying to damage our reputation in the future as well." Now, all we had to do is to cut the fat what the writer in the first email tried to write. He just tried to use some words to impress people. People are not impressed by good usage of words. People are impressed by how you write things in a very simpler way that they can understand. All right. If you have understood the example, just write okay and I'll move forward. Otherwise, if you have a question, you can ask.
We have some questions from the past
Yes.
topic, but let's move forward. We are running out of time, so we'll take it in the end.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Now, I'm just going to talk about three W's of assigning tasks. We all, as I mentioned earlier, we all are sometimes required to work from home as the COVID has arrived. And also sometimes we have to, even if we are not working from home, we have to assign a lot of tasks to people as well, right? So many people complain to me and say that they are not very effective in assigning tasks, or sometimes they say that their subordinates don't really, you know, do what they require to do by reading that email. I'm just going to give you some clarity how you can make it work. So there's three W's of assigning tasks that you need to keep in mind. Number one, you have to ensure that whom you want that email to be addressed to. When you are copying a lot of people in that email and you are not writing the person's name who should be attending that assignment, you are putting it in a bystander syndrome. What is bystander syndrome? It is, for example, we go on road, we see there's an accident, and we see a lot of people are standing, but no one is actually coming to help them, or very few people are coming to help them. So all those people who are standing there, they are actually thinking that, okay, since there are a lot of people, someone will come and help. So the same applies to emails as well. When you are writing, when you are copying a lot of people and you are not assigning a task to the person directly, you are putting that person into a bystander syndrome. All right. Then sometimes when we are writing an email, we are not really clear what we really want that person to achieve, what we really want that person to do. So we have to be very clear what we want them to do. Then we have to mention a clear, you know, deadline for what has to be done. All right. So when you ensure that you are using all these three elements, I'm sure you will be able to get, you know, the task which you require to be done from the people. Let's just see an example. Okay, one of the participants has actually requested to repeat the concept of bystander syndrome. I'm just going to take a minute. Okay, for example, you go out and you see there's an accident, all right? And you see a lot of people are standing over there, but very few are going to help that person. All those people who are standing there has this concept in mind that since we are many people, some of us will go and help, but nobody really tries to go and do something. Similarly, when you know, you are drafting in, when you receive an email and it has a lot of people copied, what you actually try to do is that you put that person in a bystander syndrome. He feels that, okay, since Ali, Noman, Shazad, Jahazev, all these people are copied in that email, so it may not be referring to me only. Maybe these people are required to do the job, I am not required to do that job. So we have to specify who has to do what if you want to achieve what they want to do. All right. Okay. Now, as an example, we have a 3Ws in action. In first email, we do not have it. And then in the second one, which I'll show, it has all these 3Ws. Now, the subject line says, prepare minutes of meeting. Email says, dear all, I need you to do the following task for me. Compile and share the minutes of meeting for multiple project meetings we had a couple of days back. Now, even though he has copied Carl in two and CC'd James and Sarah, but it doesn't tell who has to do what, number one. Number two, it doesn't clearly exactly tell what the person has to do and when he has to submit, what's the deadline. Now see this example. This could have been rephrased like this. Number one, what I actually propose to the people is that if they want to have an action from their teammates, they should write action in a parenthesis so that people understand that, okay, this email requires an action. So you will write action, then the subject line says prepare minutes of meetings, and it starts like this. Dear Carl, I need you to do the following task for me and submit it by the day and today. Now you can see that there's a deadline as well. James and Sarah can help if necessary. Now, Carl is required to do the main task and James and Sarah are on the assistants only. So it clearly says who has to do what. And then it says compile and share the minutes of meetings for multiple project meetings we had a couple of days ago. Now you clearly know what that person has to do. And the person is also clear that he has to do that, and he also know the deadline. So this is how you can assign your tasks. All right, so this is, I'm just giving the another example now moving forward. Now, one of the participants has asked me that it was perhaps it was related to banking, right? So the question was, if we are going to be a paperless organization, how we can reduce the size of an email? Okay, sometimes you cannot really reduce the size of an email, but what you can do to make it very crisp, what you can do to make it very smooth or someone to understand. Number one, in the very beginning of the email, you have to write write a heading, quick summary, all right, and then you have to do the following task. Not more than 5 sentences. You have to write the executive summary of your message. It should include what action has to be taken, or what is the entire gist of your message. Then it has to give the impression that you are a thorough professional and wants to save others time. When you add a quick summary, you are giving that person this message that you are trying to save that person's time. And then all the details that you want to be added in that email, you just put by adding a heading details, and then you can write all the background information that is necessary to support the action that has to be taken. All right. Now, don't shy away repeating the information as you have which you have already mentioned in the summary as well. Here you are just reinforcing or restating the point. All right. So I hope that you have got this understanding how you can actually make your long emails work, right? Now, since we are running out of time, I'm just skipping the grammar part, but I will send you an email which has all the content of the presentation, and you can see what I had to cover. It's very simple. I have discussed some punctuation, some articles, the usage of some specific formulas and specific words, but we can, since we are running out of time, you can just go through the slide and you will understand that. With
We have
this,
some questions, Hassan.
yeah, please ask.
Yeah, I will combine the questions from Mohammed Al Idrisi. He's saying that if we are, and this question is asked from a number of people, if we are sending an email to different management levels, our peers, senior and senior management, then should we design 2 emails, or we can do one in everything in one? So based on the strategies you have mentioned, what should be the strategy? And the second question from the same person is that what should be the best practices for the structure of the email? Because many people says it has to be an opening, middle, and end. So is it the right thing, or there is an additional structure as well? So first you answer this, then I will ask more.
Okay. So first thing comes, the first question is if they are sending an email. Okay, let me just recall the question and tell me if it is the right question. I mean, if it is, I'm recalling the right question. The question was that if they have to send an email to the senior management and if they have to send it to their subordinates, do they have to design 2 different emails, or a single one? Was that the question? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. So now it totally depends upon what kind of information you are throwing at people. For example, if it has, when it comes to senior management is only interested to know the gist of the message. They just want to know what has to be done. But when it comes to your subordinate, you have to give them a detail of everything. But as long as your management, your senior management does not require a detailed question, detailed understanding of the situation, you don't have to write a long email to your bosses or the senior management. But to your subordinates, yes, you have to go in detail, you have to discuss the nitty gritty, you have to write an email which requires a lot of elaboration. All right.
Yes.
Now, uh, the second question was, can you please repeat the question again?
About the structure of the email. What is the best practice? Open, middle, and closing. Is it the best practice or anything additional?
Okay. So again, if you think that email is very long, I would suggest to go with this thing that you write a quick summary at the very beginning and then put a heading of details and then put the background information. But of course, an email has to have a beginning. It should start with a context of something and then what action that has to be taken. Otherwise, if that email is short, just try to keep it, just you just add some information. Beginning, middle, and end is always necessary. All right. So you cannot start by saying that you have to do this and then you start by telling something at the context. All right.
Okay, Hassan, again, a lot of people have asked about the BCC. What is the actual need of BCC in an email? And the next thing is, when we are replying the email, is it really important to use dear every time, or we can just use it in the first message and then reply and reply and reply? So we have to use dear every time or not?
Okay. Now, I like the first question more. So a lot of people, what they actually do is that they start putting people in BCC. In corporate environment, it's sometimes to show to the bosses or show to the subordinates that see how much work we are doing. But when it comes to the boss perspective or the manager perspective, he doesn't want to see a lot of email. He wants to see the action being taken or not. Are there any results or not? So it's always unless your manager asks you to put yourself put him in the BCC list. If he hasn't asked, not to put them in the BCC. And same goes with CC. If you want, for example, if there's a situation where a lot of people has to be given that particular information, only then you add them into the CC. But if they are not directly related, if they are not required to those information at all, you can just cut those people out of your email. You don't have to, it's a very bad impression to have a longer list of CCCs, right? So just try to keep the very important people, very relevant people in the email. All right.
Yes, Assam, one question which also a couple of people asked, what is the way of sending a polite reminder? And please answer in both the ways, reminders to inside and outside the company, and also if somebody is senior to you and you have to send reminder. So overall,
Okay.
for sending reminders, because sometimes people get annoyed if they get reminders.
Okay. So again, it depends upon how you are sending that person a reminder. For example, if you are writing that gentle reminder, it's fine. If you are saying just a gentle reminder, for example, there's an email, you can just say in the subject line, you can add in the parenthesis gentle reminder, and the rest of the subject line goes. All right. Also in that email, you can actually write to your senior that I mean, instead of just writing the gentle reminder in your body, you can just say that I understand you. I understand that you must be very busy, but I believe that this particular situation requires your immediate attention. So when you write something like this, the person feels that okay, he's being understanding, but he also needs a response very soon, right? So this is how you send a gentle reminder to a person. And also you write at the end that it would be I would be very I will be very happy, or I will be very grateful if you can send me a quick response to that email. All right. So this is how you do it.
Hassam, one more question is that how and when we can escalate an issue in our emails, and what are the main tips to be taken in consideration when we issue an email for escalation, and to control the emotions as well, because when we are escalating any issue, sometimes we are irritated. So how to
Okay.
control, and what are the tips for escalating an issue so that it doesn't go in the bad direction?
Okay. So first thing first, try yourself to just try to keep yourself away from writing an emotional email. It is always, it's fundamental. Sometimes you have to start, I mean, there are certain situations where you do not have to email people at all, you have to call them. But if you want to bring something in the knowledge, just try to write the situation and the action that you want to be achieved, rather than writing that you are very frustrated, or you will keep you will get that person fired. Sometimes people go, why I'm saying this, what's the reason behind it? Because even if the problem resolves, sometimes two colleagues start fighting with each other on an email. Even if the situation resolves, that email remains in the record, and whenever that person goes and sees that email, it brings the negative memories. So whenever you're writing an email, just try to keep your negative emotions out of it. It's very necessary. All right.
Okay, Hassam, the next question is, I think it's coming from a cultural point of view.
Mm-hmm.
When we are writing dear to the
Mm-hmm.
females in the email, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds friendly. So is it okay in the corporate environment if we write dear, even if to the females? This is basically the first question. Okay, you can answer this, then I will ask the next.
Okay, so it's perfectly fine to write dear and a female person's name. It's perfectly fine. No professional, I don't think, would be offended by someone writing dear before that person's name. And if that person gets offended, it's not you who's the issue. That female is, because you always start with polite message. All right. If it's the problem with the person, if you are just writing dear and that person's name, it's perfectly fine, no matter if it is male or a female. All right.
Okay. Okay, Hassan, the next question is, we know that some of the names are used for both the genders. So like Anam and some of the names. So if a lady is receiving an email with Mr., somebody is addressing her as Mr. Anam, for example. I won't take the actual name now. So shall so they have to reply in the same email, how to reply, how to express, and or should they send another email separately that my name is this and I'm a female? I mean, how to express
Okay.
express this?
Mr. Kazi, I'm just stopping you for an important reminder for the people, and then I'll come to your question. All right, just a moment. Please, people, I don't want you to go right now. Mr. Kazi, I just request you to put the put the feedback form link on the chat, and then all these people and all of you are requested to fill that. Meanwhile, I'm answering the questions. All right, and after, when I'm done with the question, I would want you to come on the screen and wave me so that I can have a good memory of that session. All right, now, Mr. Kazi, I'm coming back to your question. Apologies for that.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
So the question you
please ask
understood,
again.
right?
No, can you please just
Okay.
repeat?
When if the name is used for both the genders and somebody is addressing the female by writing Mr. Anam, for example, and she's a lady, so how to respond that? Is it to respond in the same email, in a separate email, and how to express that I'm a female? You should write Miss or Mrs. So is there
Okay,
any
so yeah.
professional and best practices way for that?
Yeah, okay. There are two ways. Sometimes we realize that okay, we wrote someone's name as she was female, and we happen to write Mr. And sometimes it's vice versa. The person wants to tell us that they are not male or female. They have a specific different. I mean, they are either male or female, but we happen to write the otherwise, right? So in that particular situation, if you want to correct your mistake, you can just write in your email that when your message is completed, you can just write as an apology note. P.S. I happen to address you by writing Mr. in my previous emails, but I now realize that you are a female. So I'm apologizing for the previous mistakes made. All right. So you can write something like this. And at the same time, if you want someone to understand that you are, I mean, if they are writing you as a male and you are female, you can just say that, you can just write something like this. For example, that just to correct or just to highlight, I am I mean my gender is female or something like this. So it will really gonna help. All right.
Yes, I believe we are going towards the last question because I cannot see a lot of more questions, but people are in fact thanking you for the session. So if we consider it last, if any no more questions, how do you respond to somehow a rude reply from a colleague? For example, if somebody is saying it's not my work, or you have to wait, or I cannot do multitasking. So how to reply in that situation?
Okay, so this can happen. People tend to be very rude on their emails, but in this particular situation, I would request that person to call that guy who's being rude, and try to make him understand, make him understand the situation. And obviously, look, when it comes to work is always about understanding each other, right? So if you can just call that person and talk to him, maybe you will be able to understand the situation. Once you understand it, most probably you will, you might regret sending that person email. Or if you think that that work has to be reinforced anyway, you will just try to copy your boss and send that person an email in a polite note that we understand the situation that you are burdened, but this work has to be done by specifically by you only. All right.
Okay, somebody has just mentioned that I have one more question. Can you please elaborate quote unquote format with example? It's tough to understand. Wahab Zaidi has asked this question.
uh,
Quote unquote format.
I want him to be a little specific to what he wants to say.
Okay, let's wait.
Okay.
Apart from that, I cannot see a lot of questions. Yes, Yusra Khalid is asking how to excuse on email if you have misunderstood something and documented it. I think she's emphasizing on the word documented it already. So how to excuse on the email?
Okay, so if you are writing someone an email and you have mentioned that there was a mistake, so you would say, you can start by saying that, first of all, I would like to apologize for the mistake I made in the previous email, or something that has already been documented, something like, some very polite. See, if you have made a mistake, you will going to have, some problems with it. But the best way to do it is to write the apology at the very beginning. All right.
Yes, Hassan, if you can stop your presentation, we can all see each other in one window.
All right. I would love to. I would love
Okay.
to. Okay, I would want everyone to come on the screen and just share and tell if the session was
I think
good, really good.
we would be now soon closing the session, and I hope everyone has filled in the feedback forms.
Please
So let's
fill in the,
have a
fill the
screenshot
feedback form.
for
Yeah.
our online photos.
I want you all to wave hands. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope there was some learning for you all. I know, many things cannot be covered in a 1 hour session. Writing is magic. Writing is excellent way to, tell what you want. And when it comes to writing, writing is everlasting impression that you can make. All right. So it's a long journey to learn how to write, but once you do it, you can just make amazing, communication can help you go do wonders in your life. So just keep on doing it, just keep on improving yourself on the communication side. All right.
Okay. I think thanks a lot to everyone,
Okay.
and thank you, Hassan, for this wonderful session. A lot of people has asked about two things: the presentation slides and the recording. So
Yeah.
we will be sending you the presentation slides, and
Mm-hmm.
we will be sending you the recording of the session as well. Again, on behalf of our group CEO Hamza Hashmi, I would like to thank all of you, our participants from Saudi and Pakistan. And do fill the feedback form and tell us what of the next sessions and topics you want to hear in the future so that we can work on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting all of you virtually. Thank you. Thank you very much.